Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Kate and today I'm going to be teaching you how to paint a cute winter deer sleeping in the snow. Let's get started. To start this tutorial, I'm going to walk you through how I drew my deer. So I already have the basic guidelines sketched out on my paper just to kind of save some time. And I'm going to walk you through each shape and then how we're going to bring it all together. So what I did was I started with this big oval. And I just very quickly sketched in an oval on my page. And when I use pencil, I usually just keep going around and around to get the best shape. But for this, I'm just going to show you with markers so that it's very visible for the camera. And then once you have that in shape, that's going to be the base for our body. And I do recommend doing this all in pencil so that you can erase a lot of the guidelines once we kind of piece it all together. And then the second thing I did was I added a little circle right here in the right corner of the oval. So you have your big oval and then you're going to add a little circle. So this is the body and then we have the base for our head. And then once we have the base for our head, we can kind of come in and create the shape for our nose. So a deer's nose kind of comes down to a circular triangle for the point. So it starts like a triangle, it kind of comes down, but then we go and make a circular shape, and then we bring it back up. So you can kind of see how it is like a triangle, but it rounds at the edge. And then our deer is kind of facing downward, so the nose is going to be more sideways. And it's, again, another rounded triangle. And then for the legs, you're going to come about a third of a way and right up near the back, and you are going to make its leg shape. So you can just stop right there, or you can bring it all the way down, which is going to be more of a curve, and it's going to kind of curve in like a staff. And then you're going to create a small circular triangle again over here. Bring it to a point about halfway to where that first curve was up there. And then it's just going to shoot straight down just a little bit below our oval. And then just round it off a bit and tuck it in with both of these. Tuck it in underneath the deer's nose. And then you can add your ears, which are, you round up, bring it to a point, kind of like how we do leaves. And then you can do the same thing, you round up to a point, then bring it back down. And then for a deer, to create its nose shape a little bit more, you start with a line and then bring it up. And then right here we'd add its little eye and eyelashes. And you can see this deer's shape. Now it looks rough because it's all in ink and it was very, you can actually see the shapes that we pieced all together. So now with pencil you could erase the line between the circle and the nose, erase any lines that kind of intersect that take away from its shape and value. So that is how you draw the deer. Let's get to how we paint it. To start the painting process of this painting, we are first going to draw a horizon line. I already have mine in place down the center of the painting. And then I drew in two areas where I'm going to have birch trees closer up. So I have a curved line over here, and then I have one right over here. And you're going to fill up the sky with a clean coat of water. Avoid your trees, try to leave them as dry as possible. And then mixed up already on the side, I have a purple and blue mixture that I'm going to be applying to the back. So the blue is a mix of ultramarine and a little bit of Payne's gray just to give it a deeper, more evening tone. I'm just going to go in and start painting in the entire sky. I'm using a round brush so that I can avoid my trees more easily. Kind of work around them because birch trees are mainly white and gray, so it would be a lot harder to cover up the blue that I'd be putting in. I'm just going to bring the blue all the way down over here. I'm going to go in with some of the purple that I mixed. I mixed just a little bit of violet purple with the ultramarine blue. And I just want these colors to seamlessly blend. I am going for a night sky, so I don't really need to worry about adding clouds. We will be adding snow toward the end of our painting process. All right, and while it is still wet, I'm going to add a little bit more Payne's Gray to my ultramarine blue mixture. And I'm going to go back in toward the top, just to give it a little bit more darker tone. It was turning out very light. And watercolor will always dry lighter too than what you first put down. Just kind of carry that down. And then I'm going to do the same thing, a little bit of that Payne's Gray and my violet. I'm just going to add that down here. And I'm doing this all while the sky is still wet, so it blends in very nicely and I won't have any weird blooming lines. I'm just bringing it up and blending it on this side, just like that. And then again, while our skyline is dry, I'm going to switch over to my detail brush and I'm going to put on it a very dark mixture of Payne's Gray. And I'm just going to draw some straight lines, a little bit of zigzags going down. These are going to be evergreen trees in the background, and because it's the wet on wet technique, they are going to be very faded and be very much just lost in our background, but still give it that depth that we want. If you would like to know or have a tutorial just on how to paint these evergreen trees, please leave me a comment below letting me know if you would like to learn just about how to paint these trees in a separate tutorial. I'd be more than happy to take one and just teach on how I do my trees. I use these in a lot of paintings. They're very easy and they add so much character, especially in landscapes. So you can just see how this is blending throughout the whole background. It's just kind of seamlessly leading into it. A tip for this too is make your trees all different sizes. Try not just to do a straight line of the same height of a tree. Try to make the height vary as you go down or across. But it's just adding little zigzag lines all the way across. We're almost done. We'll just have one more here. And then a little one right at the end. All right, and then what I'm going to do while they're wet, I'm going to clean off my brush, and then with clean water, I'm going to start right underneath it, not touching them. And then I'm just going to tap into that horizon line to bring down some shadow. But not too much. I'm not using a lot of water for this, just enough to activate it. So there's not a harsh line, and then also it'll give that reflection on the snow. All right, now we're gonna let this completely dry, and then we'll come back and add some more details. Now that our sky and trees have dried, we are gonna go in and we are going to paint our birch trees. So to do this, you're gonna get clean water on your brush. We're gonna do one tree at a time, and you're going to fill in with clean water the entire tree branch. And then you're going to take a very light wash of Payne's Gray on your brush, and you're going to fill in most of this tree. Not all of it, but most of it. You want it to have some white space, just to give it more of a natural look. The gray is just to make the tree come off the page instead of laying flat. And then I'm going to take clean water and I'm just going to blend out around it for that Payne's Gray to just seep into, to give it shadow. Now while this is wet, I'm going to switch to my small detail brush, and I'm going to dab on just the tip a thick mixture of Payne's Gray. And then what you're going to do is you are just going to follow the right side of the tree trunk all the way up. It's okay if it bleeds like that, like you're seeing mine doing right now. We're going to add some lines once we have it all the way up to the top. And then, so I'm going to take some paint off my brush, and then I'm going to blend these out. But you don't have to blend it out completely or take it away. And then I'm going to come up here, just kind of pull out, and then coming on the opposite side, just pulling out that paint. And then I'm going to take some clean water because, oops, on my tree, up here it dried really fast, and I don't like how harsh that looks. So I'm just going to blend this out a little bit so it doesn't look so sharp against my sky. And I'm just blending it out by putting clean water on it, rubbing my brush back and forth, and then taking a dry brush and just swooping up the paint. All right, so I really like how that looks, so we're gonna let this dry and we're gonna move on to our birch tree over here. So we're gonna switch back to our size 6 round brush, get clean water on it, and we're gonna repeat that step over here. So just fill up that tree all the way up. I'm gonna do a little bit more on the tips. And then take that light Payne's Gray mixture again and fill up most of the space on your tree. Just kind of let it go where it will. Then take that clean water and blend some of that gray out around the tree to give it a natural shadow against the snow. And then again, while this is wet, we're going to go in with that dark layer of Payne's Gray. And then we're going to repeat what we did over here. So we're going to have just a dark shadow line on the right side. So just following that up. Take a little bit more paint on my brush. following it all up this tree trunk. And then I'm going to come down here on this branch. I'm going to go down the side and then just up a little bit on that side. And then we're going to do what we did over here. We're just going to pull those lines out. And we're going to do it on either side, even though one side is not shadowed and dark. And again, I don't know why, but the very top of my branches keep going. It's just drying a lot faster. So I'm just kind of blending that out a little bit so again, it doesn't look like a harsh line. And then get a little bit on my brush. And I'm going to work our way down this tree trunk, going back and forth on either side, just curved lines, just like that. Then I'm just going to very quickly, so you can see, just gonna blend this out a little bit more. There. So now we are going to paint in our deer. So to do this, we are going to create a very light wash of burnt umber, and we are going to fill in our entire deer except for its tail. So just a nice even coat over everything. This is going to be our base coat. So this will be the lightest color that we see on our deer. This is a nice easy part because you can just go over everything. You don't have to be too careful. It's a nice, quick, and easy step. And then what we're going to do while the paint is wet, we're going to create a dark mixture of burnt umber. So just a lot of paint, less amount of water. And then we're just going to tap it right up here on the tip of the ears and watch it bleed down. Just like that. And then we're going to let this layer, actually no, I'm sorry. We're going to also do that exact same step right at the nose. And you don't have to worry about it really getting into the nose area because it is all going to, the nose is going to get covered with Payne's Gray. And then we're going to follow our line that we drew earlier up with that color and let it bleed. And then we're going to do that right on the eye. And this is not creating our eye, this is just creating shadow that's going to be behind it. So don't worry about it not looking just like the eye that we drew. Right, and I'm going to do the same thing right down here by the tail. And I'm going to blend that out just a little bit because over there has dried a lot more than our face. Up. All right, now we are going to let this layer completely dry and then we're going to come back with a darker layer. So now that this layer has dried, we are going to use our size 6 round brush, but we're just going to be focusing on the tip of it at the beginning. We are going to do the wet on dry technique. So we're going to use that dark mixture of burnt umber, and we are going to apply it to mainly the upper back, and then we're going to blend it downward, leaving the leg a light color and leaving the face a light color. So you don't need to work too quickly with this step, just because we are going to use water to blend everything out at the end. So just carefully go around the little circles that we already created. Right, so I'm going to come around the leg like this, and before I keep moving on that edge, I'm going to take my brush, I'm going to clean it off for the most part, and starting down here, I'm going to add water, and I'm going to blend it upward into this darker mixture to blend it out so there's not a harsh line. I start farther down so that I don't bring all of the dark paint just straight down with my brush. I just want it to blend at the top. Just let it wrap around the leg. And then I'm going to go in with more clean water starting down here on the leg. And I'm just going to bring that down. Just again so it all blends very seamlessly with no harsh lines. Just kind of smoothing it out up here. Tapping a little bit more darker paint. Right, and then we're going to come back up to where we stopped. I'm going to keep adding that darker paint mixture. So I'm just kind of going over where I left off so that it reactivates and it is, but still that darker tone. I'm just going to come down here because we curved around. Just taking a little bit of paint off my brush. I have really tiny circles I'm going to avoid. And then I'm going to avoid the ear, so I'm just going to go around it. And then I'm going to rinse my brush off again. Using just some clean water, I'm going to blend up this leg and I'm going to pull that dark paint down around the face. I don't want it to get on the deer's face. And that's why it's great to have a brush that really has the tip that stays at a point. It's really worth getting a brush like that. And the brushes that I use were not expensive. I think I got my set of 4 under 10 bucks. And if you head over to my blog, I have a link that can send you right over to the same brushes that I use. And I'm just blending that down around the nose. And I'm going to take a little bit more of the dark paint, and right where I just put some clean water, I'm just going to dab that right there just to kind of give it some shadow from the leg. Just kind of pull it around. But I just want that to be a little bit more obvious where the break is. Oop. And then just gonna blend that curve. And then back here, we can finish off with our dark paint. This area back here was nice because I could just leave it because it's not touching anything, so that I didn't have to worry about if it was gonna dry. So again, you just wanna be careful as you go by the ear and around the head and around your little circles. If you need to, you can switch to a smaller brush just to help with avoiding the areas that we don't want to get any paint. Just like that. And then you can just kind of look around, add some touch up where you might want it. But overall, I think I'm very happy with the detail. Just gonna blend what I just did out a little bit. Right, just like that. And then we're going to let this dry, and then we're going to come back with our final details. Now we're going to use our Payne's Gray paint to fill in the nose, the eyes, the hoof, and then a little bit on its tail. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do the deer's tail, and we're just going to create a very light wash of Payne's Gray. And then we're just going to kind of come around the outline. And then you're going to clean your brush off all the way. And then with just clean water, you're going to start in the middle and kind of swirl outward to bring that Payne's Gray paint in. And it'll leave the darker section of that paint on the outside, but it'll fill it in to give it that off-white look that we want. And then we're going to take a dark mixture of Payne's Gray on the tip of our brush, and we're going to fill in the nose. So the nose is a circular-ish triangle. It's basically a triangle with just some rounded edges. Like that. And then we're going to do with the eye. And you can use a black ink pen for this step if you do not have, if you're still working on your water and paint control. Don't feel like you have to just use paint. If using an ink pen will help, by all means. So just using the tip of your round brush, carefully outline the deer's eye. And then you can give it little eyelashes if you like. And then you can fill in the deer's hoof with the same Payne's gray paint. All right, and then our deer is finished. So even while this is drying, we can go in and we're gonna add some snow details to our ground. So since our page is already white, we are just going to use that light wash of Payne's gray, and we're just gonna add a little bit of shadowing. So around the trees, if you feel like it needs it anymore, I just felt like this one needed a little bit more shadow. I'm gonna add a little bit over here to this one. And then I'm gonna go around my deer. So try to avoid your deer as much as possible, especially if some areas are still wet. You can just wait until you're 100% sure your deer has dried so that you're not even worried about touching it at all. Like, you would definitely not want to touch its hoof right now since we just painted it. That color would go everywhere. So just very gently go all around it, a little bit behind it. Just to give it some detail and like that it's actually creating a shadow and not just sitting on a white page. All right, so, and real quick, I'm just gonna add some final detail to the ears. Just feel like it needs a little bit of an outline. I'm just blending out this darker color. Just felt like the deer's ear needed to be a little bit darker. And then I'm going to blend it into the face. Just like that. All right, and then for our very last step, fill up. So grab your size 6 round brush again, fill it up with clean water and a lot of white paint, and we are gonna tap snow into our sky. Now with this painting, I'm not really worried about covering up any part of it just because it is white paint. It really shouldn't show up that much, especially down here. I'm gonna be focused up on the sky, so I really am not worried about what the snow covers. So I'm just gonna take my round brush with my white paint, and then I'm just going to tap it all over the sky. And I'm not, like I said, not really worried about what sections that it touches. And there you have a watercolor deer painting with a nice wintry background. So just using the tip of your round brush, carefully outline the deer's eye. And then you can give it little eyelashes if you like. And then you can fill in the deer's hoof with the same Payne's gray paint. All right, and then our deer is finished. So even while this is drying, we can go in and we're gonna add some snow details to our ground. So since our page is already white, we are just going to use that light wash of Payne's gray, And we're just going to add a little bit of shadowing. So around the trees, if you feel like it needs it anymore, I just felt like this one needed a little bit more shadow. I'm going to add a little bit over here to this one. And then I'm going to go around my deer. So try to avoid your deer as much as possible, especially if some areas are still wet. You can just wait until you're 100% sure your deer has dried so that you're not even worried about touching it at all. Like, you would definitely not want to touch its hoof right now since we just painted it. That color would go everywhere. So just very gently go all around it, a little bit behind it. Just to give it some detail and like that it's actually creating a shadow and not just sitting on a white page. All right, so, and real quick, I'm just gonna add some final detail to the ears. Just feel like it needs a little bit of an outline. So I'm just blending out this darker color. I just felt like the deer's ear needed to be a little bit darker. And then I'm going to blend it into the face. Just like that. All right, and then for our very last step, fill up. So grab your size 6 round brush again, fill it up with clean water and a lot of white paint, and we are gonna tap snow into our sky. Now with this painting, I'm not really worried about covering up any part of it just because it is white paint. It really shouldn't show up that much, especially down here. I'm gonna be focused up on the sky, so I really am not worried about what the snow covers. So I'm just gonna take my round brush with my white paint and then I'm just going to tap it all over the sky. And I'm not, like I said, not really worried about what sections that it touches. And there you have a watercolor deer painting with a nice wintry background. Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed painting this easy watercolor deer with me today. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel and give this video a thumbs up. If you'd like any extra details on this painting, head over to my blog, Reflecting Creation, where I will have more details on this painting as well as my supply list and the specific paint colors I used. Hope to see you again soon. Bye.